and what our vision was as an organization and for downtown. And we reconfirmed our mission statement. So we continue to have it be that we're dedicated to enhancing the vitality of our downtown center. We do that through historic preservation, economic development, community engagement. We're volunteer driven, we're nonprofit. The majority of the time, under normal circumstances, we have a staff of 2 doing all of this work for that large community. Last year, as part of that strategic planning, we spent several months really looking at what the vision for downtown Waterloo was. We looked at what some of the city's thoughts were. We looked at what our current vision statement was. And our current vision statement really was focusing on specific projects, and it seemed more like a plan or a checklist. So we updated, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So we updated it to Main Street Waterloo is committed to being a thought and resource leader to assist downtown in becoming a vibrant place to live, work, and play by leveraging the assets of historic buildings, transportation infrastructure, leisure facilities, and resources. We thought this really encompassed everything that we do and everything we work with. So I'm going to kind of do a quick, I'll try to make it quick, overview and kind of do it like a funnel. I'm going to start with the big picture and get down to Main Street Waterloo. This has been, the Main Street approach has been a grassroots network made up of small towns, mid-sized communities, and urban districts with thousands of organizations, individuals, volunteers, and local leaders that is who makes up that Main Street America. Main Street America is a program of the National Main Street Center, which is a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which is why one of those big focuses for us is historic preservation, not tearing old buildings down and building new, trying to do what we can to save those and rehabilitating what we have. Main Street America has been helping revitalize older and historic commercial districts for over 40 years. Today, the network has grown to more than 1,600 neighborhoods and communities, both rural and urban, who share both the commitment to place and to building stronger communities through preservation-based economic development. So a quick glance at those big numbers for the nation. These numbers are through 2018. We were trying to see if they had the 2019 numbers available, but they're a little behind schedule with COVID-19 and pushing those resources out. But almost $80 billion reinvested, or $79 billion reinvested in downtowns across America, with 284 buildings rehabilitated and net gains in jobs and businesses that are pretty significant. And then we take that to Iowa. Each state that has Main Street communities has their umbrella of the state organization at that state level. And Main Street, Iowa is a leading voice for preservation-based economic development. The Main Streets are incubators of small businesses and the launching pad of entrepreneurs. Great ideas are nurtured in communities and appreciate the value of local. And there are over 50 of the Main Street communities in the state of Iowa. With those numbers that we looked at on the national level here in Iowa, under the Main Street Iowa umbrella, there's been $1.42 billion reinvested. That is public and private. And I pulled those numbers through June 2019, so to match up with fiscal year. They have, obviously, we're not there yet to be able to get the June 20 numbers yet. More than 12,000 buildings have been rehabilitated, a net gain of 15,000 jobs and 4,000 businesses, almost 5,000 businesses just in downtown in Iowa. And then how does downtown Waterloo play into that? Here's some of our numbers. Successful economic development is not what you don't have, it's what you do have. And one of the things we have worked hard to do over the past year is make people aware of the value of downtown Waterloo and the history it has to offer. Also, how small incremental approach to redevelopment can be a great approach. The numbers I have up here, I tried to match with the Main Street Iowa numbers, but I'm gonna read to you what I was able to pull through March of 2020. So through March of 2020, we've actually had $57.26 million reinvested into our downtown. And these are completed projects. So we have some big projects that are about to finish up in the downtown area. So those dollars aren't accounted for here yet. 306 buildings have been rehabilitated in our downtown. There's been a net gain of 583 jobs and a net gain of 233 businesses. since 1996 when we became a Main Street community. As part of the Main Street America approach, there are the 4 councils or the 4-point approach with community transformation that we look at. Main Street Waterloo has utilized the Main Street 4-point approach throughout the 2019-2020 year. We've held monthly meetings for each of the councils: design review, economic vitality, organization, and promotions and marketing. Subcommittees delved deeper into planning and implementation, and all of these councils and subcommittees are led by volunteers. One thing to note that I really definitely want to note is, a lot of organizations took some time off during COVID-19, and we continued to meet. We just pivoted, like most people, like a lot of people did, and we went virtual. So even through COVID-19 and social distancing, every single council and subcommittee continued to meet, whether it was monthly or weekly. And we wanted to remain focused on helping the small business owners and the property owners and what we could do to help them survive, and then revive them as we restart our economy here in downtown. So I'll talk through each of our 4 councils and kind of what they've been up to over the past year. The Design Council supports downtown Waterloo's transformation by enhancing the physical and visual assets that set the commercial district apart. This group either reviewed, consulted on, and approved more than 30 different sign and facade improvements over the past year. Things from sign improvements, or new signs for new businesses such as Behar Bar and the Loft, Folks House, Here's What's Poppin', to outdoor seating for Tri-Pie that they haven't gotten out yet, but Here's What's Poppin' is going to be adding some outdoor seating as well. Also some facade or historic renovation improvements. Weber King Building definitely worked with us and brought their revisions or what their plans to us for approval. Also, Silos and Smokestacks and their move and making sure that they become a gateway into downtown and that it's very visible from the highway. And then the architects have brought the plans for the Best Western facade and signage. We actually just last week approved the signage, so hopefully that'll go up soon and show that there's some things happening over at that building from afar. I know when you're close up, you can see it. Also some other projects. We've been talking about this for a while, but we're really trying to get a plan in place, working on murals. There's a proposed mural for the right over by the parking garage on Commercial Street. So working through what that design looks like with the artist, which also then develops into a project. We're partnering with the Waterloo Center for the Arts and other groups, and Waterloo Center for the Arts is going to take the lead on it, but creating a mural committee that will put together a plan for downtown Waterloo. So we'll have locations in mind and properties on board for murals, and then if there's a theme we want with any of these murals. So that's a really exciting project so that we can move forward with some murals, not just a bunch of groups talking about murals. A mural project that we were really excited about was we were working with a group through UNI or from UNI on a wheat pasting mural project that was going to be throughout downtown Waterloo. That got paused due to school being let out with COVID-19. So we're really hoping we can bring that back when school starts up later this year. And then also partnering with JSA on a tree planting project. They've really taken upon themselves to take the lead on as we've had to replace sidewalks in downtown. And instead of just replacing a broken square of concrete with trees, so they're doing it on their properties. And they're working, they've come through the Main Street design review process to make sure that, there's not too many or there's enough. And also then working with the city. But this has become a bigger project, which has been now being taken to the Complete Streets Committee. So there's going to eventually be a full overall tree planting plan for downtown Waterloo, which will be nice. So no areas will look like a concrete jungle as some areas do right now. We'll have some greenery and definitely taking into account the different types of trees. So that way, if something were to happen, not every tree is the exact same and has to come down. So some of the development projects we've talked through and have been brought to the council with the Lincoln Park project. we're really excited to get the ribbon cutting going. So we're just waiting for us to be able to have mass gatherings again and be able to open that up and really showcase it as a finished project. The Friedel building, or the old bakery over there, as they get to the exterior work, that stuff is coming through us. Art block, you're seeing some of that exterior stuff coming up. Masonic Temple is wrapping up most of the, I think the exterior is done, but wrapping up the interior. So hopefully that one will get opened up here in the next couple months. One of the big ones, we spent the time with the advisory committee learning and talking with the consultants on the Park Avenue Bridge and the 11th Street bridges, being able to provide our input for aesthetics, that big dream list if we had all the money in the world, not just this grant money, as well as thinking about the businesses and what's best for those businesses, construction, and once construction is done, how that affects entrances into their property, or what runoff would look like. So it was great to be a part of that, and we plan to continue to be a part of that group, encouraging people to come to the public meetings when those happen. And then I mentioned in some of the reviews, the Best Western, the exterior, they brought to us several months ago, and then last week we approved the signage. And then I've been a part of the team that has been looking at the improvements to the convention center, being able to provide input on the interior improvements, and also look at and do some research for the exterior improvements, whether that's the sign or the beautiful casing at the top there. There's still a lot of work to go, but we're excited to be able to be a part of that team. And then the Weber King building was finished. This is a before picture of the Weber King building. The exterior is done, but doing the approvals for the design changes they made and helping make sure they did it in a historic renovation as it is a historic building. The big project we've been working on over the past year is our design guideline update, updating the Main Street Waterloo design guidelines to help business owners understand what is allowed through the city ordinance and the best way to accomplish their vision while maintaining history of the building. We've put a lot of work into it. We've got everything formatted. We've got almost every section fully written, and it's in the proofreading phase now. Once I know planning and development has been on the team that has seen sections of it, but before we implement it, it'll go to planning and development and the building department to make sure we've got all of the information correct and we're referencing the right parts of the ordinance and contact people. This will be very helpful. This is going to get distributed to every property owner. It'll be at City Hall for city staff and for people coming who are interested in exterior improvements to their buildings. It will cover everything from signage to windows to outdoor seating. Even conversations have started about what's called parklets and what that would look like if a business wanted to rent the parking space in front of their space and extend to their outdoor seating or patio into that parking space. And then consultations on exterior painting. Economic Vitality has definitely been the busiest council over the past several months. The Economic Vitality Council focuses on capital, incentives, and other economic financial tools to assist new and existing businesses, catalyze property development, and create a supportive environment for entrepreneurs and innovators that drive local economies. Our big focus over last year before we got into this year was Cheers to Small Business, our educational workshop series that we started. We started it in October of 2018 and had built it really nicely through that first part of 2019. Our October 2019 session was on managing your business cash flow, and at that one we partnered with the Startup Week at UNI, and we're able to create some great, make some great contacts, and actually we're able to secure at least one of our pop-up vendors for Shop Downtown Lou because of this training. We also made connections with people who are very interested in moving their business out of their home into a brick and mortar location. And because we offer this kind of help, we're newly considering downtown Waterloo as where they would go. In February, we did a Know Your Numbers seminar where we really were able to help the small business owner understand the importance of accounting, and just a Google spreadsheet probably isn't all you need. Providing business owners with valuable resources and information that they need. We were able to bring in banking, accounting. We brought in a law office that talked about small business collections, because that was something that we were getting feedback from, that these small businesses didn't know how to collect what was owed to them. We did have one planned for May, which was going to be on the ban the box and then small business HR hiring practices. That got postponed because of COVID-19 to June, and still just looking at this month, we're not sure that it's time to bring people together in a closed room for training. And with the city offering their Fair Chance Initiative webinar, we've canceled our June session, and we're just making sure we transition everyone over to that webinar. So hopefully that'll help the city get some additional people signed up. And rather than doing the exact same presentation 2 different ways, because we were partnering with the city's team to put that information out, let's just partner together and put that out there for that webinar. I've had one-on-one meetings with business owners to discuss the future of their business, especially during COVID-19, and ideas and what the future of downtown looks like. I honestly lost count. I know I've had more than 200 meetings over the past year, and that's not counting the I'm just gonna do stop by and phone calls for the meetings that were on my calendar. We have made a big effort to be that resource for businesses through COVID-19. And the big topic, COVID-19, when it comes to the economy in downtown Waterloo. We immediately made some changes to our website. So rather than focusing on us as an organization and downtown and the events, we changed our homepage. We changed the top of it. So the first thing you see is resources for businesses and anybody who wants to be a part or wants resources, as well as what are the businesses doing. You know, when businesses had to start shutting down, some were able to stay open partially, some had to close completely, and there were just a lot of questions. Where do I go? How do I find out who's open? And we wanted to provide everybody, or the community, with kind of one place, a one-stop shop to find that information. It also became a one-stop shop for the business owners and community members to find resources on funding, webinars, anything they would possibly need, toolkits for reopening, in the resource section as well. We had tons of phone calls, daily phone calls with businesses, people who wanted to meet in person. I was more than willing to meet with them. We've never closed down. We just closed our office to foot traffic. It has just been by appointment only. I was putting out daily emails. Once the different types of funding and some of the information slowed down, the email slowed down, but I've stayed in constant contact, and anytime something new comes out, we're getting that information out to the business owners. And we've also continued our business meetings. Those moved to virtual as well. And we've been able to provide a platform for business owners to discuss together where their struggles are, get ideas for reopening and those safety concerns, where to get the cleaning supplies and sanitizing supplies that they need to be able to reopen. A part of our efforts with COVID-19 that we're proud of also is we were able to help 16 of our small businesses in downtown secure the Iowa Economic Development Authority Small Business Grant Program. So that free money that was out there, and it was hard to get your hands on because it was a very short window. But we were able to secure that for 16 of our businesses, which ended up being over $300,000 in loans. So that was we were happy to be able to help them. Our organization council is really the backbone of the Main Street Waterloo organization. This group is involved in creating a strong foundation for a sustainable revitalization effort, including cultivating partnerships, community involvement, and resources for the district. This is the council who looks at our volunteers and helps recruit those volunteers. We logged more than 4,000 hours of volunteer time last year, which is the equivalent value of over $101,000 if we would have had to pay those people. Since we started as an organization in 1996, we've logged 87,758 volunteer hours, which is the equivalent of over $2 million in volunteer hours. We were able to renew Organization Council, sorry, I have a fly. Organization Council renewed our partnership with Silos and Smokestacks to be able to help make sure we had our flowers this year, because we needed to keep something vibrant and happy in our downtown as we were going through these unprecedented times. So we have partnered on that pollinator project again. So our planter boxes, they expanded how many they did. And so all of our planter boxes are now pollinator plants that are going to attract monarch butterflies. So we'll be really excited to see those butterflies throughout downtown Waterloo as the summer continues as well. Organization Council has continued improvements to our website and growing our newsletter database. And also, they've looked out for Main Street as an organization as well. With us not being able to have events, our fundraising dollars have gone down. So they launched a 100 Friends of Main Street program where we've challenged 100 people to donate $100 to our organization to help make up some of that fundraising money that we would have made at events throughout, well, since March. We've also launched Downtown Waterloo gift certificates. As this is something we've been talking about since I started 2 years ago. People have been interested in them, and during COVID-19 was the perfect time to launch them because not every business was open. Not every business had an online platform. Even ones we tried to get set up with an online platform. So you can now purchase a gift certificate from us to downtown that can be spent at any of the downtown businesses like cash. We've already sold, without really marketing this a lot, we've already sold about $3,000 worth of gift certificates to downtown, which is really exciting. A big project that the organization council took on last July, which we've just silently pushed out. We were going to do a bigger launch, but with COVID-19, that's pushed that back. So we'll just continue to silently launch this. But we've looked at, people don't understand, or the community in general doesn't understand who Main Street Waterloo is, and we're really pushing downtown Waterloo. So we're switching our focus to be about downtown Waterloo, and that is the destination. That downtown Waterloo is what people know and where they want to come, and then Main Street will be that organization behind those efforts. So we went from a black and gray and yellow and white logo that was beautiful, but didn't show the vibrancy of our community, to some bright colors in these blues and yellow, green, and orange, and then carry that into all of our events so they all tie together. So now as you look at them, you can see how they reference back to the logo. And I can see that Rock the Park takes place in downtown Waterloo and is tied to Main Street Waterloo. We can tie them all together by having that branding. And this is where we're having a full website redesign. We've just been waiting to launch it. You'll see that in July of this year. We're also working on a downtown map, a nice fold out map that we'll put out throughout the community. And then we'll have all of the businesses, parking, banks, everything and categorized for downtown Waterloo, which we're really excited about. It's been a fun project to work on, but we tabled it just to see how things went with COVID-19, and then we'll get those printed and distributed. With this rebranding, we also were able to participate in the 2020 Visitors Guide with a 2-page spread to really showcase downtown Waterloo, the vibrancy and all that there is to do. And you'll be seeing some downtown commercials coming up as well. And then our last council is Promotions Council, and this one has definitely been very affected by COVID-19 because we haven't been able to have events. The two that I'll just touch on real quick will be My Waterloo Days. I know as we all signed on, we were talking about it a little bit. But we still wanted to, with everything being canceled, we still wanted to provide the community with something, some fun and some excitement. And I think we were able to do a little bit of that. We were able to give the community a parade. No, it wasn't a typical parade, but it was fun, and we've gotten tons of great feedback, and people have thanked us that we still move forward with doing something. And then the highlight was the lip sync battle, and I'm sorry, Mayor, I did not rig it for you, but Tavis did win, not you. I apologize, but maybe next year. But we've gotten such great feedback on that lip sync battle that we've now we're now going to be adding that as a permanent event to My Waterloo Days. So you guys might be getting called on to be participants. So start thinking about your song. The other event that we wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, we were still able to do, and if you guys were watching some of our lives, we made the announcement on Saturday. We are still going to shoot off the fireworks. We're just not going to be holding the live entertainment event part of it, but we'll still have those fireworks for the community. Because as much as we enjoy putting on the events as a fundraiser for our organization, we love putting on these events to make the community happy and provide them with something. So that kind of wraps it up. People are seeking out places and character where they feel connected. Downtown Waterloo is a place to raise a family, start a new business, and build a community and forge the future. And questions?
Any questions, Council? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to commend Jessica. I'm city rep on the board, and it's been a struggle with the virus. And Jessica has just stepped up, and all of the volunteers. My Waterloo Days was amazing, considering we couldn't have it in person, but it was really fun. And Jessica's at the heart of that. So I want to just thank her for all of her work. Good job.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, let me add one more thing, if I may. One thing we were going to work on that Jessica didn't address is the SMID, self-supporting municipal. That kind of got put on hold for a variety of reasons, but I know it's something the council is really adamant about wanting to pursue, and so we will do that hopefully in the near future when things get back to the near normal.
We did table it through COVID-19 in those early days because we had to look at ourselves as an organization to make sure we were going to be able to survive this. And it's hard to go ask businesses to pay an extra fee when they don't know if they're going to be able to keep their doors open. So actually this Friday, we will begin meeting and discussing SMID again, and hopefully being able to get that back on the table and get the ball rolling with that.
Good, good.
Other questions? No, what's the process now?
So this is part of the existing contract for Main Street to report to the council. We are getting near the end of the fiscal year, so we're moving ahead with the next Main Street Council. Obviously, you can hear of all the great things that they're doing. We would like to continue that partnership from the city standpoint. So we are working on the next contract and hope that have that to the council in the next week or so.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, I was just wondering, has there been any change as far as Main Street's budget and the city's being able to provide more funding for the much needed budget that Main Street has?
Good question, Mr. Morrissey. Mr. No, what's the recommendation?
We are looking at the monetary amount and raising that, basically working with the CFO on the TIF numbers. We've been paying it out of the TIF primarily with some portion coming out of hotel motel. We are looking at paying it all out of the TIF and increasing that amount. The recommendation at this point was what we're working to put it at is $60,000. The current contract was at $40,000 out of TIF and then $10,000 out of hotel motel to be applied for.
Okay, thank you.
Jessica, we can honestly say that our Main Street does a lot with not necessarily some of the dollars that other places get, but we appreciate your work. You have a council that supports you, that advocates for you, and appreciate your hard work and diligence. You know, an incredible downtown is powerful to the economic future of this community. So we want to thank you for your tireless work, and please let your hard-working volunteers know that we appreciate them and that we'll support them. It's tough times right now, but we're going to get through this. We're going to come out even better, and we're going to continue to support you. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we now have, a 4:10 meeting for the finances. Kelly, we can just continue on, right?
Charge ahead.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Juon? You got to take yourself off mute.
I'm sorry, I forgot that I had muted myself. Thank you, Mayor, and to the council. I hope you have in front of you the policy worksheet that we worked off of last week. And so in light of that, we got through last week number 9. And so we're going to start on number 10. And number 10 is a large discussion agenda item that addresses lump sum advances, which are allowed in the travel policy, and per diem amounts if they decide they want to be paid per diem versus just turning in receipts at a certain amount. They can do that, or the per diem also addresses the maximum amounts that they can expend under the conditions. So with that, I think, Dave, I'm going to turn this over to you because you had a lot of thoughts on this issue.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. And we don't normally do the lump sum payout ahead of time. It is in the travel policy, and if it's something that we're going to do, I think it should stay in. But if it's something that we haven't done and aren't planning on doing, that it should be taken out of the travel policy. The part of the per diem on the meals, we have a section in our travel policy that states that you can have on a large city, which is a city like Minneapolis or someplace like that, $70 a day, and then you also it goes from $70 a day. Smaller cities, $45 a day, with receipts, and you also are supposed to have the option to have no receipts and just get a cash payout of $55 a day for large cities and $35 a day for smaller cities. And it's in our travel policy, but it's something that doesn't seem to be approved. And I know Michelle might be able to chime in on this and tell us if it's been approved, because I know as a city employee, I've applied for this many times and had it turned down. So I truly believe that even if we lower the amount to $50 for large cities and $30 for smaller cities, as opposed to the 55 and 35, that we might get more city employees to sign up for that avenue as opposed to the 70 and 55 where you have to turn in receipts. As you know, when you turn in receipts, if a person has a drink with a meal, that can't be on the receipt. If a person tips, it can't be on the receipt. And so it really becomes a hassle on the receipt aspect. And I truly believe that in the long run, we could save money. And I've been told that Michelle feels that in the long run, we might spend more money. And she can come in any time here, but I think that we should at least try it. Let the department heads know that this section of our travel policy is, will be approved if we decide as a council to approve it, and see which direction it goes. I can tell you historically, I've traveled with a lot of people, and if they had $70 to spend on a meal, they spent $70 by the time the end of the day was there. So I think that having a lower amount, having a cash payout where you don't have to turn in receipts, in the long run will save the city money.
This is
Michelle, do you want to address that?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we have that in the policy, which we kind of use as a fail-safe when there's something that goes wrong with receipts. I can almost guarantee you actual receipts are never, I don't know that we've ever gone over the $70. And other examples I've seen, people will even tell you, if you talk to them, they make money if we just give them cash. And it gets back to me, they tell people, oh, these drinks are on the city because I got X amount per day, which I think is a really not good thing for people to be saying about the city, people don't know that you're joking or however that works, and so they think that the city reimburses for alcohol, which we should not do, and that's one reason it's just one in a long list of reasons that I think receipts are appropriate. We do allow for tips up to 15%. The police department, I think, may not, but we don't allow more than 15%, and sometimes we do have people that tip too high, and we have to get that back from them. But a tip is a reasonable expense for, a meal. We do have in the policy that we can allow lump sum cash advances, but that's only in cases, I would almost use the word emergency. That isn't the exact term in the policy, but it does say if there's extenuating circumstances. And I would prefer that we leave that, because as soon as you delete it, there'll be some odd thing that happens and we'll need to do that. I don't know that I can think of more than once or twice that we've had to do it over 20 years, but sometimes it does happen. Particularly now, we have city credit cards available. I think people can take them and use them for their meals. I think that our policy really works pretty well. It's work to get your receipts and to bring them back, and it's work for us to review them too. That's the downside, but I do think, in my experience with looking at them, that the expenses are lower when it's actual receipts than it would be if there was just an allowance, unless we really did dramatically reduce the allowance. So that,
Michelle,
this is to try to, yeah.
Is there anything in this part of the policy that you do recommend we look at changing?
Not necessarily. I'm pleasantly surprised, actually. It seems like most of the amounts are still within IRS ranges. It doesn't seem like there's been issues with that, other than, like I said, sometimes people leave more than a 15% tip, and we just have to adjust for that. But
if I remember correctly, Mr. Bozen, you recommended the possibility of running both systems kind of in parallel and see which was the most expensive, to give the cash at the 50 and 30 amount versus keeping the rates that we have right now and have them through receipts. Is that correct? Are you still thinking that's a thought?
And that was my thought, is to try it for a year and see how it works out.
And let people choose which way they wanted to go?
Yeah, and the thing about it is the cash without receipts is in the travel policy. It says that it's allowed. And if it's allowed, if a department head puts that in, it should be accepted. But it's generally turned down. So I truly believe that one way or the other, it's either in the policy and it's allowed, or it's not in the policy, and we go with the higher amounts. I was in favor of possibly dropping that down a little bit. One of the things that Michelle brought up about, some of these receipts coming in less, I used to have to go every year to recertify my arson canine, and I put in the maximum amount that was allowed. But that money actually didn't come out of the fire department budget. It came out of my arson canine account, that I used that money specifically for all my expenses for my dog. And I ate as cheap as I possibly could because it affected my program. It wasn't because I was trying to be a good steward of the money for the entire city. I was being a good steward of my dog program so I could keep that thing functional. I would spend maybe a quarter of what I would turn in but the travel policy allows for that specific reason. But if it's in there, I think if a department head applies for it should be allowed. That's my contention.
Michelle, is there a reason if somebody puts in those cash amounts on the per diem that they're not approved?
I'm not sure what Mr. Bozen's referring to, and he certainly must have been a very good city employee not to spend the money. So there are other large employers that, for example, will not pay for meals if you go somewhere for a day, or they don't pay for lunch, for example. I believe Deere is one of those. So actually, as I'm thinking about potential changes to the policy, that is one that would save a lot of hassle if we did not buy lunch when somebody went to Des Moines, for example. And I would suggest if you want to use the per diem, I think $50 is too high for most cities. I would probably cut that to 40 and 20 for a day. A lot of classes will serve some meals, not all of them. So that becomes a big headache for us to figure out the per diem, because you don't get the per diem if they're serving you the continental breakfast or whatever. There really isn't an easy way to do that. But that's up to you guys. And, you know, if it's that important to provide more expense, I guess we can do that.
How difficult would it be to have both systems going and compare them at the end of the year?
Well, what's funny is I would suggest to you we're pretty much doing that now, because it's the department heads that have more influence about actual and per diem. So I'm not, it's a headache, but it's a headache for us all the time. I don't know that I see the value. I think you're allowing the employees now to pick whichever one is in there they're going to get the most out of each time. And I just, you know, we all benefit from traveling. We learn things. You know, but it's your policy, so you can choose.
Madam Chair.
From others. Mr. Griner, do you have any thoughts on the per diem or on the lump sum advances or the receipts?
Well, I'm willing to let Councilman Boson have his thoughts first.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair.
Do you want to respond any further?
Yeah, I've been trying to.
Sorry.
Here's the thing, and on the, you know, I suggested possibly going down from $55 and $35 a day to $50 and $30 a day. And if you're in a large city and your meals aren't covered by the conference or whatever you're going to, I mean, you can spend $12 to $15 for an orange juice, a coffee, and a muffin at a restaurant, the hotel, and that's breakfast. Okay, I can assure you that based on 34 years of working at the city and doing a lot of traveling when I worked for the city, that it wasn't up to the employee or the department head that when we would turn in a travel request as far as a per diem, because we would have to fight to do the per diem, or not fight, but we'd have to go jump through a tremendous amount of hoops, and it's in the travel policy. We either take it out or we allow it, and that's all I'm saying. And I'm willing to go down. I think $20 a day is extremely difficult to eat on. With what Michelle wants to bring it down to, I think 50 and 30. And keep in mind that $50 a day is for a city or surrounding area that's over 1 million people. That's a lot of people. So most of it's going to fall into the $30 a day. And that's my thought on it. And I apologize for jumping in there, Jonathan. Please go ahead.
My thought is, I've just done travel for my daytime employer, and they have a receipt policy. It's kind of a pain, but I didn't find it to be a big issue. I will agree with the councilman from at large that we either need to let people do it or take it off the books. Like, I don't think it should sit there as sort of an enigma to confuse people. So I do think whatever we decide, we do need to clean up somehow.
Okay. Mr. Amos, do you have any thoughts?
Madam Chairperson, for me, you know, I've traveled for my union many years ago, and one of the things that was required is you had to have receipts to show, regardless of whether it was a small city, large city. With that receipt process, it was fair. You know, it wasn't like you were going to be getting extra dollars to spend. It was just wherever you happened to have to travel at that time, that was what was basing what the cost was going to be for the union. And to me, that receipting process, I understand what Councilman Bolson is saying, is okay, you have a policy in place to where an individual can submit how much they spent without receipts, but you're only going to get so much. And then you submit that receipt and you get nothing anyway. So if you're going to get nothing anyway, why is it even there on the books? And I understand that, you know, that it's a subjective type thing as well, do we pay this or don't we pay this? And obviously it's not being paid all the time. So for me, it probably shouldn't even be there.
And you're talking about the per diem or the lump sum? Both?
What I'm talking about is the one where you actually have the ability without receipts to submit a dollar amount.
Okay.
That's the one that I'm talking about.
Okay. Mr. Feuss?
As somebody who's traveled often, receipts have always been required, for accountability purposes, two, for, just to make sure that you are watching your budget as appropriately as possible. And my travel is, I assume, I didn't have a lot of 1 day down and back kinds of things. It was more 2 or 3 days. So I think we don't want to dissuade people from, if they're spending time away from their family, that they are able to have a meal in a location that they may not typically have, and it shouldn't be fast food or any of those kinds of things that, certainly can do it. But I think we should afford them something. And I don't know necessarily if we want to take it down as far as, $20 or $40. I'm not sure that's going to be enough. As Councilman Boson said, you can get an orange juice and a breakfast pastry, and that's already $10 to $15, and that doesn't include anything, if they're not providing meals on the way home. We talked last time about traveling on the way home. If you want to stop and get something, and you necessarily don't want to get something, nothing wrong with a hot dog roller, from a convenience store, or a slice of pizza, but you also want to make sure, like, if you're trying to stay healthy, that you have options available to you.
Thank you. Mr. Morrissey? Mr. Morrissey?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
No, I don't have any particular stance one way or another, so I have nothing really to discuss right now about that.
Okay. Mrs. Klein?
Well, I'm a person that likes receipts. I like to know what's going on, and I think receipts keep everybody as close to honest as we can expect. So I'm all in favor of receipts.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments people would like to share on this topic before we move on to the next?
Real quick, Sharon, this is Dave again.
Yes.
And when Michelle said at times when, let's say, someone tipped too much or there was an issue with it going over, it's an incredible hassle for the city. It's an incredible hassle for the employee, because I could have overspent $1.35 on a tip, and I've got to come down to City Hall and write a check out to the credit card company. I have to do that. The city doesn't write that additional check to the credit card company. The employee does. And there are downfalls in every one of these. There's pros and cons. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah. I found it really, the per diem, extremely easy. The receipts sometimes can become a hassle, especially if something happens to one of your receipts and you don't have it when you show up, because then all of a sudden that's on you. And then to try to come up with the proof of what you was spent, especially if you're using your credit card and not the city's. So as I said before, I understand everyone's ideas about receipts. I think they're important, and I think it should be an option that we allow, and we should allow the per diem without receipts. Also, like I say, we one way or the other. We either leave it in the policy and allow the employees to do it, or we take it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on then to number 11. Do I hear somebody want to make another comment? No? Okay. Number 11 is the request to include itinerary, conference outline, and so forth. What we're finding is that sometimes the employee does not do that, and we really need that itinerary to determine if meals are covered or when the conference starts, whatever. And so our recommendation here is just to enforce that the department head make sure the employee include that with their request. Does anybody have a problem with that?
Madam Chair, just so I'm clear, and that would just be like a schedule for the day or days that the employee would be there, so.
Right.
It's not, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it would just be what the conference sponsor puts out. If they use a travel agent, the itinerary, whatever written documentation they have about the trip.
Sure.
Okay. The next one then is training offered at a closer location. If you'll remember, Kelly and Michelle are hopefully working together on putting out a new online request form. And this is just saying that we add that to the form. So, for example, they're going to a conference in Anaheim, California. It's going to say next to that, is this conference offered at any other locations? So maybe they want to go to Anaheim, but it's also being offered in Omaha. And I think we have that responsibility to determine why they're not going to Omaha. Why are they going to Anaheim instead? Does anyone have an issue with that? Okay, good, thank you. The next one, and we talked about this a little bit at our council meeting last week. The emergency, the unanticipated travel, that we want to add that to the form. And so when they submit that form, they explain why it was an emergency, and that the staff member can just talk to Michelle or myself or someone from the finance committee to explain that, hey, we as the police had to go to Galena, Illinois to pick up a prisoner and we didn't have advance notice, or we're going to Cedar Rapids to pick up parts for the fire truck and we didn't anticipate doing it. Things that weren't anticipated in advance that we would still approve, we would just ask that they let Michelle and either the chair of finance or a couple members from finance. Does anybody have a problem with that?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, we've always historically, not we, because I've only been on a few months, but historically they've always signed off on those requests after the fact. Yeah. I just have that language in our travel policy just as for protection.
Okay.
For the department, so that they know that if something like this comes up, that those issues or incidents in our travel policy are allowed at that last minute. You gotta drop everything and go. And it's for the employee, it's for the department. And I think it just cleans it up just to have it in the policy.
So your suggestion not only is we add it to the form, but add it to the policy, right?
Originally, it was just to add it to the policy.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Michelle. I really hesitate to add that to the policy because I don't want every travel turning into an emergency because they didn't get their paperwork turned in. A phone call from somebody in your department, someone in your department should know you're traveling. I just would think someone could place a phone call. It's hard enough getting paperwork prior to people traveling. I think that just opens a problem. I could be wrong, but that's my thoughts about that.
But I think Mr. Mosen is just saying if we're going to allow emergency travel, why wouldn't that be part of the policy? We can word it such that it's a fairly restrictive thing. They would have to explain the nature of the emergency. Wouldn't that take away your concerns, Michelle?
I guess we could try it and see.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Boson.
the verbiage, if we put the verbiage in the travel policy, the verbiage could also state that and the phone calls are required. And that covers everything. That it's going to be common knowledge throughout the department heads that if an emergency comes up, and the majority of the time it's the police department, because I mean, you know, they've been looking for this guy for 5 months and he pops up in Denver, Colorado, and they've got to go out and get him, or they got to go out and question him, and they need to leave today. You know, I mean, and it happens quite often, really, to be honest with you. And so I just wanted that protection in the policy, but yet we can put the verbiage in the policy that states prior to the officers leaving, you know, the contact with the CFO and the chair of the finance committee or finance committee members. It could be in the policy. It'll make it clean. It'll make it easy. And each department head will know what they have to do to function under that emergency guideline.
Okay. Thank you. Finally, the one that we have on here is need for training. If, for example, a department is taking 5 members of their department to the annual conference for the professional association, what are the benefits that all 5 are going to get? Is it necessary for all 5 to go? Is this just a reward for those staff people? And if so, I don't personally think that the city should pay for that, but is there a real need for all 5 people to go? Discussion on that one.
Can I say something?
Yes, Mr. Hart. Mr. Hart.
Unless Michelle may know something I don't necessarily remember too many staff traveling for personal pleasure and they didn't pay for it for themselves. I will give you an example of one department that has 3 employees in it. All 3 of those employees go to a particular conference. And the reason being, there's a lot of legalities, there's a lot of federal changes that happen yearly in this particular area. In addition to the federal changes, the secretary also is in charge of a data management system, and that data management system has to be done a certain way, and that is taking place at that same conference. So I know for a fact that all of these folks in this one particular department have to go to be aware of what's happening in federal changes that are taking place in those areas. So, you know, I don't know of, unless you guys know of, you know, particular departments that are having that much fun. Well, let me take that back, that are just doing it for fun and not going to the training. I'd like to know about that, but I do know entire departments have to get certification. They have to get training to be able to function with federal requirements.
On the other, and I appreciate that, Mayor. On the other hand, for us that may not be aware of some of those issues, it certainly wouldn't be problematic to state on the form why the whole office, the whole department has to go to a conference. I don't see that as being problematic. Any other thoughts on that?
Sharon?
Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
I don't really even see the reason why you would feel like you need to ask that question. The department head is making a determination that various employees within their department have a need to be at this training. That decision's already been made by the department head, so I see no reason why there should be anything like this added to it. Again, it gets back to trust in the department heads.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on it? Mr. Boson, did you want to address this? one point you had some issues.
No, everything's been said that needs to be said.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's the end of the recommendations, items for discussion that we brought forward to you. Let me say that my thought is I will, in conjunction with Michelle, try to summarize as best we can what we think the recommendations are or how the council feels on this, and send it back out to all of you for your review to make sure we captured, again, what your thoughts were. With that said, that was the items that we wanted to bring to you, but do any of the rest of you have any comments or additions or thoughts on the travel policy? Nothing? Okay. Well, then we will send out a summary of sorts after I've had a chance to work with Michelle. Send that out to you for your review, and then get this on the agenda for the full council to address at some date in hopefully the relatively near future. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I should turn it back to you, Mayor.
No, you're fine. Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.